Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. Hare Krishna devotees. So we are reading from Srīmad Bhāgavatam. In the last few verses, we have discussed the series of pre-events that led to the auspicious event in the history of Srīmad Bhāgavatam being spoken by Shukdev Goswami to Maharaj Parīkṣit. So we are just going through the pre-events. And we have read till now how Maharaj Parīkṣit, while he was hunting for wild animals in the forest, due to providence, he got hungry, he got thirsty, he got fatigued. And then he went to Shamik Rishi ashram, and then he found the Rishi in meditation, in trance. And because of that, the Rishi was not able to welcome Maharaj Parīkṣit appropriately, welcome a king appropriately. And in that moment of slight frustration and anger, Maharaj Parīkṣit put a dead snake around Shamik's Rishi's neck. And then we read how Maharaj Parīkṣit's action was actually not out of line. It was completely appropriate for a king who is actually a father of the nation and who is not being welcomed properly, especially when the king was also in a distressed condition. He was affected by hunger, thirst, and fatigue. However, we also read that although it is appropriate action by a normal king, Maharaj Parīkṣit was not a normal king. He was not an ordinary king. He was a Rajya Rishi. He's a pure devotee of the Lord. Hence, his response was definitely not normal towards Shamik Rishi. And so we can only understand that this was Lord's intervention and not a normal occurrence. And then when we in the last couple of verses we read how when Shamik Rishi's son Shringi got aware of this event, without any investigation, without getting any further context, he declared that Maharaj Parīkṣit is a guilty party here. And then he insulted Maharaj Parīkṣit. Then he cursed Maharaj Parīkṣit that he will die in the next 7 days, being killed by the Takshak snake. So this is what we have covered till now, till yesterday. So let's read what happens next. So we're going to do verse number 38 onwards today. Tato vyetyaashramam balo gale sarpa kalevaram pitaram vikshya dukkharto mukha kanto rurodaha. What to a translation? Tataha, thereafter. Abhyeta, after entering into. Asharam, the hermitage. Balaha, boy. Gale sarpa, the snake on the shoulder. Kalevaram, body. Pitaram, unto the father. Vikshya, having seen. Dukkha artha, in a sorry plight. Mukta kantaha, loudly. Ruroda, cried. Ha, in the past. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of his grief cried very loudly. Purport. The boy was not happy because he committed a great mistake, and he wanted to be relieved of the burden on his heart by crying. So after entering the hermitage and seeing his father in that condition, he cried loudly so that he might be relieved, but it was too late. The father regretted the whole incident. Prabhuji, if you can move to the next verse. So verse 39. Sava angrisho brahman shrutva suta vilapanam Anmilya Shankar Netre Drishtva chamse mritoragam. What to a translation? Saha, he, vai, also. Angirasaha, the rishi born in the family of Angira. Brahman, O Shaunaka, Shrutva, on hearing, Sutta, his son, Vilapanam, crying in distress, Unmilya, opening, Shankahe, gradually, Netre, by the eyes, Drishtva, by seeing, Cha, also, arise, on the shoulder, Mrita, dead, Uragam, snake. Translation: O Brahmanas, the rishi who was born in the family of Angira Muni, hearing his son crying, gradually opened his eyes and saw the dead snake around his neck. Prabhuji, if you can move to the next verse as well. Verse number 40. Visrajya tam cha prapaccha vasta kasmadhirodhishi kenavate prakritam iti yukta sanyavedayat. Word to word translation: Visrajya, throwing aside, tam, that, cha, also, papracha, asked, what's, my dear son? Kasmat, what for? He, certainly, rodishi, crying, kena, by whom? Va, otherwise, te, they, apakritam, misbehaved, iti, thus, uktaha, being asked, saha, the boy, nyavedayat, informed of everything. Translation: he threw the dead snake aside and asked his son why he was crying, whether anyone had done him any harm. On hearing this, the son explained to him what had happened. Purport: the father did not take the dead snake on the very neck very seriously. He simply threw it away. Actually, there was nothing seriously wrong about in Mahārāja Parīkṣit's act, but the foolish son took it very seriously. And being influenced by Kali, the king, by the Kali, he cursed the king and thus ended a chapter of a happy history. If you can move to the next verse, Prabhuji. Verse 41. Nishamya shaptam ataddarham narendram sa brahmano natmajam abhyanada aho batamoho mahad adyake kritam alpiyasi droha ururdamodritaha. Word to word translation: Nishamya, after hearing, Shaptam, cursed, Atad arham, never to be condemned, Nara Indram, unto the king, best of the mankind, Saha, that, Brahmana, Brahman, Rishi, Na, not, Atmajam, his own son, Abhyanadat, congratulated, Aho, alas, Bata, distress, Amhaha, since, Mahat, great, Adya, today, Te, yourself, Kritam, performed, Alpiyasi, insignificant, Drohe, offense, Uruhu, very great, Damaha, punishment, Dritaha, awarded. Translation: the father heard from his son that the king had been cursed, although he should have never been condemned, for he was the best amongst all the human beings. The rishi did not congratulate his son, but on the contrary began to repent, saying, alas, what a great sinful act was performed by my son. He was awarded heavy punishment for an insignificant offense. Would anyone would like to read the purport, please?
I can read, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The king is the best of all human beings. He is the representative of God, and he is never to be condemned for any of his actions. In other words, the king can do no wrong. The king may under the hanging of culprit son of Brahmana, but he does not become sinful for killing a Brahmana. Even if there is something wrong with the king, he is never to be condemned. A medical practitioner may kill a patient by a mistaken treatment. But such a killer is never condemned to a death. So, what to speak of a good, pious king like Maharaj Parīkṣit? In the Vedic way of life, the king is trained to become a Rajarshi or a great saint. Although he is a ruling king, it is the king only whose good government the citizens can live peacefully and without any fear. The Rajarshi would manage the kingdom so nicely and piously that their subjects would respect them as if they were the Lord. That is the instruction of the Vedas. The king is called Narendra, or the best among the human beings. How then a king could, like Maharaj Parīkṣit, be condemned by inexperienced, puffed up son of a Brāhmaṇa, even he had all, even though he had attained, even though he had attained the powers of qualified Brāhmaṇa? Since Ramik Rishi was an experienced good Brahmana, he did not approve the action of his condemned son. He began to lament all that his son had done. The king was beyond the jurisdiction of curses as a general rule, and what to speak of a good king like Maharaj Parīkṣit? The offense of king was most insignificant, and his being condemned to a death was certainly a very great sin of Shringi. Therefore, Sri Samika Rishi regretted the whole incident. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Prabhupada mentions in the verse 38 purport, the boy was not happy because he committed a great mistake and he wanted to be relieved of the burden on his heart by crying. So we this in our lives also. Sometimes when kids commit a mistake, they come home and they cry in front of the parents. They want to let it out. They know they have committed something really bad and they cannot fix it. And the natural response is just crying. It's basically asking for mercy in one sense. Another example where we see in Srīmad Bhāgavatam, where we have seen great repentance is in Dhruva Maharaj's pastime. So Dhruva Maharaj, he was son of Maharaj Uttanpad, who was the ruler of the world, and he had two mothers, and then he was not allowed to sit on his father's lap by his stepmother Suruchi. So he was the son of Suniti, but his stepmother Suruchi didn't let him sit on his father's lap. When he asked why, she said, "You have to worship Lord Vishnu and take birth from my womb before sitting on your father's lap." Indirectly, she was also indicating that all the benefits of kingdom is going to go to her son Uttam and not not Parad Maharaj. So not Dhruva Maharaj. So Dhruva Maharaj, although he was a 5-year boy, he still had an inherent Kshatriya nature. And Kshatriyas by nature cannot take insult, cannot tolerate injustice. And he thought that is utter injustice because why can't a child sit on a father's lap? And he was right. But due to that, he became angry and eventually went to the forest to focus completely on Lord Vishnu. And he also met Narad Muni as a spiritual master who initially first told him, "Okay, why don't you forget about this?" And he said, "I cannot forget. I'm a Kshatriya. I cannot forget." Then Narad Muni said, "Why don't you go back home? Your parents must be worrying about you." And he said, "No, I'll not go home. So if you can actually help me, please give me an instruction like that. Otherwise, I'm happy to continue." Then Narad Muni, out of mercy, actually gave him instruction on how to meditate on the Lord and attain him. So he followed this last instruction of Narad Muni, and he actually was able to attain Lord Vishnu. And when he finally attained Lord Vishnu's darshan, after following instruction of his spiritual master, he actually, in that moment of awe and reverence of love, he actually forgot about what he actually initially wanted, why he was doing all the tapasya in the first place, all the austerities in the first place. He was just constantly glorifying Lord. He was offering all kinds of prayers to the Lord. And Lord was so kind that he not only gave his darshan to Dhruva, he also gave him the topmost planet of the universe, which is Dhruva Loka. Dhruva Loka is non-different from Lord's abode. But then Lord also stated that you will become the king and rule for 36,000 years, and you will not even grow old in this time. You will have complete power of your senses. And Lord also stated that his stepbrother Uttam in some time will be killed by yakshas, and then his stepmother Suruchi will go crazy and will go in the forest and will die of a forest fire. So when Dhruv Maharaj heard this, you know, in one sense, if someone gets such material opulence, if they have a material desire, they will become happy. But Dhruv Maharaj was completely purified now of his anger, of his enmity, of his desire to get material prosperity. He was over it once he saw Lord's darshan. He was completely purified. So once in a purified state, when he heard this, he was regretting his initial intent of approaching the Lord to get all the material opulences, and also having anger and resentment towards his family. He thought to himself, it is so difficult to achieve the lotus feet of the Lord like how he achieved, because even great brahmacharis and yogis in trance have attained the Lord's lotus feet after many, many births. But he attained that just within six months. But then he mentioned, yet due to my thinking differently from the Lord, I fell down from my position. Then he also said, alas, just look at me, I'm so unfortunate. I approached the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can immediately cut the chain of repetition of birth and death, but still out of my foolishness, I prayed for things that were perishable. And then he said, under the influence of illusory energy, which is Maya Devi, under the vision of duality, I saw my brother as enemy, and falsely I lamented within my heart, thinking they are my enemies. So somehow he regretted the kingdom rule of 36,000, the boon that he achieved from the Lord. He also regretted the prophecy about his stepbrother and stepmother. He was thinking, actually I could have just asked Lord that, Lord, please, I want to go to your abode now and serve you directly now. But because he didn't have that initial intent, and Lord has to respond according to our desires, he got all these boons, which he actually saw as a curse in one sense. Then, when his brother was actually killed by the yakshas at a later time, he actually declared war on the yakshas. He was, in a response, he was killing yakshas outrageously. He was okay to avenge his brother's death, but his response towards yakshas were completely disproportionate. It is, for example, let's say if someone steals from someone in a particular kingdom, and the king, as a judgment, orders to cut the hands of the person who has stolen this thing. Now, this might sound like a very severe punishment, but this is still being carried out in some Middle Eastern countries at the moment. Like if you're caught stealing, your hands are cut. But what if the king actually decides that not only cut the hands of the person who has stolen, cut the hands of the whole village the person belongs to? So even people in general will think, yeah, we appreciate the king's judgment, that he wants to, make sure that this kind of behavior is not encouraged. But cutting the hands of every villager that person belongs to is completely out of proportion and not required. So similarly, Dhruv Maharaj was killing yakshas, the whole as a species, and somehow he was pacified by Lord Brahma, and then and other senior demigods also, and he stopped. But it is mentioned that he was doing this perhaps out of guilt, because he felt that his stepbrother actually died because of his prayers and the boon he got from the Lord. Because at the time of praying from the Lord, he still felt the fierceness of the harsh words of his stepmother Suruchi. And he kind of somehow felt that the Lord reciprocated according to that. So the lesson learned is we should try our best not to be angry. And even if we become angry, let's not take any major decision. Let's not curse people, because sometimes whatever action we do in anger, we might regret it for the rest of our life. So the action is we should try to curb our anger or try to control our actions when we are in anger. But some people could question, isn't responding to situation is also one's dharma? Or we should always practice tolerance blindly? So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu mentions very nicely in his article, he says, actually tolerance is a virtue, but then assertiveness is also a virtue. In Bhagavad Gita 2.14, Krishna mentions, Matra sparshāstu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkhada agmapayano nitya stam titikshva bharatah. So Krishna says, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course is like appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O sign of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So Krishna tells Arjuna, Tam titikshva bharata, one should try to tolerate without being disturbed. However, Krishna at the same time also speaks in Bhagavad Gita to inspire Arjuna basically to do his duty of fighting the war. Krishna tells Arjuna that Kauravas have done so many atrocities already which are not tolerable. The atrocities have crossed their limits, and therefore you must respond aggressively. Therefore, it is not that infinite tolerance is always a virtue. It can be that sometimes people may have to be dealt with in an appropriate way so that they can get the message of their actions, that what actions they are doing are causing disturbance to others. At the same time, which is very important, we should also know that impulsive action always has counter reaction. So we should never act impulsively. Impulse actions are usually not the best course of action. So it is always good to deliberate on a situation for some time and then make a response before making a decision. So normally we should be tolerant, but we might have to consider a response only if to the situation, only if someone is actually repeatedly provoking someone. So now specifically addressing the question on how to deal with anger when someone is provoked repeatedly. So in that situation, we have basically three alternatives. If only we are provoked repeatedly, if it's once or twice, we should first try to tolerate. But if it's happening again, of course, we have to do something. So we get three alternatives. First, we can try to change the other person. Second, we can try to change ourselves. And third is we can walk away from the situation. So when we find ourselves very unbearably angry, it is best actually sometimes to get out of the situation. It is best not to act impulsively at that time, because that could actually make things worse. Instead, we should just wait for some time and let ourselves be calm, let the other person be calm, and then we may have a balanced conversation with the other person. At that time, we might point out what particular action of the other person is making us irritable, and then we can to see what can be done to avoid that irritation. And what we find is sometimes the other person may not have even realized that their actions are causing inconvenience to one person or other people as well. And sometimes if they only realize, they will actually happily change their behavior, and there is actually no need to escalate things further. But also sometimes we will also find that other people may not want to change themselves as well. So, but we have to choose the option that is best for us. That's the best, that will work the best at that time. So we can either try to change the circumstances, we can either try to change the person, which is generally challenging sometimes to change the other person. We can change ourselves, which is we can learn to tolerate, or we can walk away from the situation. So walking away might sound like, why, it's like a Kshatriya being challenged, like I'll not walk away, I'll never walk away. We can say that, but it's very important to understand walking away is not running away. It's not cowardice. Walking away could be a wise and a well thought out choice that we could make. It will depend on recognizing which battle is worth fighting and which battle is not. So if we are in a situation where we can't walk away, then we must find either a way to boost our tolerance, or we should find a way that we can make our communication to the other person more effective. But we should always try to work towards a solution to the problem and not try to escalate the problem further. And what Lord Brahma says in his prayers to Krishna in Srīmad Bhāgavatam 10, 14, 18, and this is one of our very favorite verse of my Guru Mahārāja, His Holiness Kadamkana Swami as well. Tatte nukampam susamekshamano bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvag vapurbher vidadam namaste jiveta yumukti pade sadaya bha. So Lord Brahma says, my dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reaction of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances within his heart, with his heart, word, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim, Dayabhag. And then we of course know what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Shikshastakam, Trinadapi Shuni Chena Tarorapi Shahishuna Amani Naman Dena Kirtanya Sada Hari. So Mahaprabhu says, Tarorapi Shahishuna. One should be more tolerant than a tree. I was hearing a class by His Holiness Radhanand Maharaj on this verse some time back, and he was saying actually what this verse is saying, we have to be, more humble than the blade of the grass, of course, more tolerant than a tree. We cannot expect any respects and have to give all respects to others. If we do these three, only then we can do Kirtaniya Sadahari. We can always chant the names of Lord Hari. So it is very clearly stated that this is a condition we have to develop. We have to develop tolerance, because in our spiritual journey, when we are trying to focus on Krishna, factually everything else is just a distraction. So if we are getting angry towards small petty things, it's a distraction. And if we don't tolerate, we're gonna be distracted from our main goal, which is to become Krishna conscious and also serve our Guru Parampara in making the whole world Krishna conscious. So the question is, how can we do that? How can we boost our tolerance? So boosting our tolerance is only possible by bhakti, which gives us strength by which we know that at all times Krishna is with us. Krishna is watching us. Krishna is watching our behavior. So usually, whenever we are angry with someone, the anger can have so many specific causes. And a lot of times, more often than not, the general cause is we are not getting the due respect, or someone is not treating us properly. And in such situations, we should know that Krishna is always with us. Krishna is observing how we are behaving. So materialistic people always say this, this is between you and me. Everyone else should stay out of it. However, the devotee says, it is not between you and me. Actually, it is between me and Krishna. How I deal with you is between me and Krishna. So if we have the attitude that Krishna is the third person, he's the overseer, he's the witnessed, upadrishta. So if he's a third person in any interaction, if we know that Krishna is always there in any conversation between two people, because he's always a third person watching this, we will focus on trying to please Krishna and not trying to get back at the other person. Even if the other person has done wrongly, still we can tolerate the provocation by remembering that my purpose is not to correct this person. My purpose is not to please this person. My purpose is not to please myself, but my only purpose is to please Krishna. And by tolerance, actually, I can please Krishna. So sometimes just being kind and gentle to the other devotees in a provocative situation will be the best way to please Krishna. And the other thing my Guru Maharaj also used to mention, that he would like his disciples to be known to be very, very kind. So in the last verse, we see Shamik Rishi is such an experienced Brahmana. He did not approve of his son's actions, and then he began to lament for what his son has done. So he said the king was beyond the jurisdiction of as a general rule. What to speak about an exalted leader like Maharaj Parīkṣit? The offense of the king was the most insignificant. So it was even not even worth considering what to say about giving a curse for death. So therefore, Shamik Rishi regretted that incident. So we see such a big contrast between Shringi's and Shamik Rishi's qualities. So Shringi's, who didn't even see the offense by Maharaj Parīkṣit, he just heard. Also, he just heard it from someone. He didn't even inquire about the whole incident, and just in a fit of anger, he cursed a Raj Rishi like Maharaj Parīkṣit. So what kind of qualities Shringi has shown? He showed he had imperfect senses because he firstly haven't seen the whole event. That's okay. We all have imperfect senses. That's a human imperfection all of us have in Kali Yuga. Then he also showed lack of intelligence, that he hasn't seen anything. He has judged. Did he ask his father? Did he ask Maharaj Parīkṣit before coming to a judgment of who's the guilty party? Then he showed his false ego because he actually blasphemed Maharaj Parīkṣit, and he considered himself or the Brahmana caste in general to be superior to Maharaj Parīkṣit. And then he showed his anger because in anger one gets bewildered and his intelligence is lost, as Ramanaj Prabhu nicely covered yesterday. And then he took an inappropriate action. And the last was lack of judgment. His response was completely disproportionate. Even if he was cursing someone, he could have said, someone will put a dead snake on your neck. That if he had to do even a tit for tat, he could have done that. But condemning someone to be killed was, and a king and a Maharaj Parīkṣit like king was completely disproportionate. On the contrary, Shamik Rishi, who when woke up and had a dead snake on his neck, just took the snake out and just threw it away. And then he asked his son, seeing him crying, what happened? And he quickly disregarded the whole thing about the snake on his neck. And he was just focusing on his son crying and asking him, what happened? Are you okay? Did someone say anything to you? So this is a sign of a true Brahmana, one who is tolerant, one who is virtuous, one who is compassionate. So these are the qualities was a qualified Brahmana like Shamik Rishi's showing up. So as a devotee also, we need to imbibe all these Brahmanical culture. So Brahmanas are in mode of goodness, but our goal is to become Vaishnava. And Vaishnavas are supposed to be in mode of pure goodness. So we need to even showcase sometimes the highest form of tolerance that don't even Brahmanas show in the society. So it's 7:03. I'll stop here. So I'll ask everyone if they have any questions, comments, or realizations that they would like to share. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for the
Hare Krishna.
nice class. Just one comment, that when we are in such situations, it is always good to step back and ask the question, what is the lesson for me to learn from this? And secondly, how can I grow out of this? And I think if these two questions we ask, then we can have a better perspective towards the whole situation.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Very nicely said. So yeah, if we have to step back, Prabhuji said, what we do when we are stepping back from the situation is asking these questions. What I can learn from this. That's very, very wonderful, Prabhuji. And of course, if we do get stuck in a situation and we don't know the appropriate response, for Vaishnavas, it is said, any problem where you get stuck, always take benefit of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So we have Shastra who's telling us to be tolerant or sometimes respond at sometimes. Then we have Guru, and then we have Vaishnava. So we should always take advantage of this Vaishnava association of senior Vaishnava. So if we are stuck at a situation, we should always consult our well-wishers, because all Vaishnavas are our well-wishers, because their first priority is not that we win a particular argument with someone. Their first priority is we go back to Godhead. And they will always guide us in a direction that we take one step forward towards that and not get distracted from the goal. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Any comments from anyone else? If not, Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful Krishna conscious day, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.